why is my hydrangea plant not blooming? Which is a question that we get often.
Right.
So
fast. Do you want me or do you want to start?
I see y'all jumping at the bit on this one, right?
Like, oh my goodness, you answered that one a lot. Okay, so some reasons why it might not be blooming. It depends on what type of hydrangea we're talking about, right? Different hydrangeas bloom on the previous year's growth. So think macrophyllus, for example. Think oak leaf hydrangeas. They bloom on the growth that happened the year before. So if we have late freezes that damage, the vegetative buds that are coming out on that growth from the previous year.
And we've had those late freezes.
We have.
Consistently.
Yes, consistently. That can kill those buds that were coming out on what we're going to call like blooming wood, right? Or fruiting wood, the wood that would have borne flower buds. So that might be a problem. Number two, maybe you're pruning them at the wrong time. Also consider those two species of hydrangea. If you are pruning them, say in late winter, when we are pruning the majority of our woody plants in the landscape, you might be cutting off all the blooming wood, right? Yeah. So I think those are probably your two main reasons for not bloom. Now, Annabelle hydrangea, arborescens hydrangeas, a lot of people call them Annabelle, and our paniculata hydrangeas, those sun-loving hydrangeas, they bloom on current year's growth. So late freezes are not an issue for them, and improper pruning time is not really an issue for them either, because they're going to be able to grow vegetative growth during the growing season, and that is the vegetation that the blooms are going to be born on. So if you're having problems with bloom on those two types, I don't know what your problem is.
What's your problem?
Hydrangea may not be your crop. It's paniculata. It's not doing well for you.
Oh, and the other thing, I do get this question a lot. Their macrophyllus aren't blooming, but they haven't pruned them and they didn't get a late freeze. Sometimes, and I don't know what the answer is, they just don't bloom. They're just stuck in this vegetative state. And have you heard of people like trying to shock the plant, right? So they are doing like root pruning to try to like shock the plant into this state of bloom. And usually if I have one that doesn't bloom 2 years in a row and I know it's not freeze and I know it's not me, I just take it out and get a new one.
So in my driving around this part of the world recently, this seems to me like one of the better macrophylla blooming years that I've seen in a long time. So they're one of those things that I feel like it's peaches. It's like peaches, right? It's hard to control. Every third or fourth year is really good, and let's just enjoy it.
That's what I say. Just enjoy it, right?
And plant some paniculatas for next year.
And more of our macrophylla hydrangeas are remontinate. They have the ability to, yes, they put off their first flush on the previous year's growth, but they have the ability to do some blooming on current year's growth. So if you were in my cut flower talk, you saw that beautiful blue macrophylla that I pulled out. That's blooming right now, because with those remontinate types, you're going to have sporadic blooming throughout the summer.
And you might want to focus a little bit more on nutrition for those.
Yeah, and also I was going to mention fertility. Could be an issue. As well.
And something I would like to add, it does need some sun, especially in the shade. If you're not getting enough sun, it's going to struggle to bloom.
Yeah.
So even though certain hydrangeas want that shade,
that's a good
it's
point.
got to get a little sun in there, and hydrangeas like to be moist. They like that water, consistency. So maybe it's not getting enough water, maybe it's getting too much water. There's a lot of different factors that go into it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, pruning, is something, that I think, is the major, case, for some of these hydrangeas that don't bloom.
What did you do in February?
Right. So, usually goes back to pruning.
We can't have a good Q&A without a hydrangea question.
So you got to have one of those.